All right, this video with Juno is if you are struggling with anxiety and fear, occasional bouts of reactivity still creeping up, it's choreography for you. And so hang in there. The video quality is not great. Sorry about that. But if you take notes, you're going to see what's really useful about my constant choreography with this dog. Since it's pretty clear she's not in a reactive mood, and yes, she has moods, we're just going to work the fear, okay? So to start off with, I am going to catch everybody going in and out of this dog park that I can. So I love using this fence line as people walk up. So it looks like we're going to walk right at the dogs, and as soon as I feel her alert and looking like she wants to get away or go towards, I take a step in towards her face, even closer to the fence. Then as the other dogs flank me, I turn and walk in their direction. Look how nervous she is. And so I'm constantly pressure on, different types of pressure on, pressure off. And we don't stop moving. It's just over and over again, these turns, working around these dogs for her to build trust. So that was a turn in towards her, seeing this crazy doodle coming up. What do I do? What do I do? I keep going like a crazy person. I guess I must have felt really confident with Juno. She did look back there. She was very worried about that doodle. Those kinds of dogs will definitely set her up. But if you start to feel pressure from your dog, I would have turned in towards her again, because that would have put the doodle and her on the opposite side, me in the middle. But again, it's just about working the problem. Now there's no dogs, so she gets to feel a relief of pressure other than all the crazy barking. Whoa, look at this. So they are hugged on the fence line. So we do a bubble out, we get barked at, I turn, slow. But I'm in the middle, so it's all good. That's what I'm always trying to accomplish. Where do I go to be in the middle? Because if I'm not in the middle, I need double or triple the space for my dog to feel safe, protected, and of course, knowing they'll get in trouble if they behave otherwise. But that really is what it's about. This is where the trust building comes in. Your dog needs to know that you can control them, but then this is where you change how they just feel about the things that trigger them. All of this type of work. So I am well aware that this video is not amazing, but my quality and placement left a lot to be desired. I wanted to get a big space, and I certainly did. So anyway, when I zoomed in, you can't see as much as I would like. However, I kept this in because I think the dynamics, or I should say the choreography of how I'm maneuvering her around all the dogs is something you should stand up, practice without your dog, and then go out there into the world, practice it on the sidewalk, pretend there's a dog coming. When are you going to turn this way? When are you going to turn that way? Oh, the dog jumps in your face. What are you going to do? These things need to be practiced. So when they happen here, it's second nature to do the turn in the direction that you need to go. So what I'm doing here is Juno is terrible at taking food while moving. She likes it stationary, which is interesting because I usually find the opposite. But again, Juno likes to do things different. So there's another, big dog. So what I'm doing is whenever there's a lull, I'm doing rock backs or take several steps back and see if she'll take a piece of food. And she did in the beginning. And then she was like, nope, not anymore. Especially like with that ruckus going on at the dog park. She will do it when it's quieter, but she's just not as into it as when she's stationary and she'll take food. But the problem with that is if you're doing a lot of stationary food work, sometimes the dog is still quite engaged with their environment and you don't know it. So I want to point that turn out again. Normally, if my back is straight and I say turn, she turns with me with no issues. Look at the hesitation. looking at the scary dog in front of her. My trust went out the window because I became in a more compromising position, more vulnerable position. It's interesting how that works with some dogs. So that tells me she's not going to let me cut any corners. I am going to have to work on this at home, in front of the house, at the easy park that she's used to, not too close to anything, to build this up. I'm not going to be able to cut corners and do it just for a couple days and then hop to the dog park and do it. It doesn't mean we give it up. It just means I'm not going to be able to cut corners. Now, I liked this because she was in the middle and I decided to give her some leash. She was pretty tuckered out. Look at that. I did tap for that lingering look, but it was a low-level tap because her ears were back, not something that would snap her out of arousal. Now, I want to point one more thing out as you bear with my terrible footage. Even though I've edited, I have not done one stop and sit or down or pause, at least I don't think, until right now. It was nothing but choreography, playing around with moving her around, some food work, some rock backs and movement work with food. And this is the first time you see me stop with her. Now, I was playing around with some stuff. I was putting her out ahead of me instead of me out in front. That was, again, just to test her. If she had gotten really aroused, ears forward, stressed out, we would have played around with changing positioning. Working your dog in the same spot over and over definitely has its value because they start to build confidence in the situation that they're in, but it also gets stagnant, so it can give you a false sense of security. So I switched to being out in the field, doing let's go work on a very loose leash because I'm about to put her on long line, and I wanted to get her in tune first on the 6-foot leash. So as you can see, people and dogs everywhere, and I'm starting super low, just tap and turns, seeing if she'll move with me, and then I gradually add in some accountability. We had so many dogs around us that I stuck with just asking for a sit, as I felt like we were still at the warm-up stage since we were in a new location doing a new thing. Now, a really interesting side note is Juno's quite a bit different when I take her somewhere than in her local neighborhood and even my local neighborhood. Now, she is pretty comfortable in my neighborhood when she sees dogs, but she's more eager to push the heel and move really quickly. So I'll do a lot of stationary work in the beginning of the walk, as well as really test the front door boundary. Do the complete opposite when we do our park trips, which is really heavy on the movement first. It's just interesting how that works. Try both with your dog. Have your dog do it down and fully settle if they're driving you crazy with the heel and nothing seems to work. Do that for 30-second increments in your first 5 minutes of the walk. Then try to do more of the movement stuff if that's not working. Or flip the switch. If you do a lot of stationary stuff, stick to 15 minutes of movement work and really work your dog and challenge your dog mentally to see if it drains them to put them back in that heel. So because of how close these dogs got, I ate up my long leash and I kept my movement specifically to where if she did blow her top and take off towards them, see, I'm eating up more long line, I would have, there's my back up and my tap right there because she didn't pay attention when I backed up. I very specifically have my long leash at the distance where if she did just blow it and take off, she wouldn't be able to get to them. I would be able to stop her first, or at least slow her down before she pulled my arm out of socket. But no, seriously, it's about doing the same thing I just did on 6-foot leash, and instead now I'm playing around with it on 10 to 15 foot of leash. So look at this amazing down. I have a choice. I know her threshold. On a less challenging day, I would correct her and make her lay down. But I thought, you know what? Maybe if she does that type of down for a really long time, she is going to tucker herself out. So there were no big corrections for not laying down today. That does not mean in an easier situation or at my park that she's really comfortable with, even with a barking dog, I wouldn't try a correction with down. But I'll tell you how I feel about corrections with down. If I do one and I know it's valuable and I know my dog knows down, I'm going to really look around and be like, what is going on? that this dog's not listening to me today, and I'll cut them some slack, let them sit instead, maybe even let them stand. And the reason for that is because if you know your dog nose down, and you do give them, a valuable reminder that they need to listen to you, and you know all these things about your dog and they're still struggling, then I would just hit the pause button and be a lot more considerate in what you're asking. Basically, be more in tune with your dog's emotions when they are fear or anxiety based. However, don't just let stuff go, because you never know what your dog is capable of. Look at the down that I'm getting now. But my point is just that, listen to your dog. Sometimes if you just let them sit for a minute or two, then the down all of a sudden is much easier. They just needed to breathe, okay? So just listen to your dog. Now, I'm showing you this clip because I really want you to get a scope for what this field looks like next to the dog park. It is so crowded, you've seen that, but there is so much space to breathe and move. And if you struggle with your dog, I highly suggest that you get to a place like this at least twice a month, preferably once a week. It will take your fearful or anxious dog to a whole nother level to be able to go to a place like this and just be able to breathe, even when it's busy.